Hi everyone. Today in this session, I'm going to teach you a super simple landscape where we are going to show a little bit of a dramatic sky and maybe a couple of flowers or a valley of flowers or a hill covered with flowers underneath. So when I teach landscapes to my students, I generally keep it very simple. So there are a couple of skies that I made them learn and study. These are few of those. But at the same time, we go element by element when I'm teaching landscapes or when I'm teaching painting nature in watercolors or any other medium. In this is a tiny 4 by 6 inch watercolor sheet that we're going to use here. Make sure whenever you're using a watercolor sheet, you're keeping the grainy side on top. If you're using a cold pressed paper, then you should have grains on top. When it is hot pressed, it is generally smooth on both the sides. So make sure that whenever you're using a cold pressed paper, then you're using the grainy side on top. So this is a tiny little study that we're gonna do. These are this is one of my you know uh, watercolor palette that I use when I'm doing these tiny studies. But otherwise, I generally have my huge palette with all my colors taken out of the tubes. Cakes are handy when you're trying to have a variety of shades and want to quickly paint something. This works well even while you're traveling. And frankly telling you, this is my daughter's palette that I'm using right now because this looked like a neater palette to use for our study today. So let's get started. I don't want to spend too much time drawing, so it's going to be a pretty rough sketch. I'm thinking of dividing this into a 2 by 3 section, maybe a couple of distant hills here, like this, and then some bright and beautiful flowers covering the hills which are closer to us. I don't know if you can see this clearly. Let me also make sure that my camera lens is clean. It often happens that my fingers are touching the camera lens, so let me just clean it quickly. Sorry for that. All right. I'm using few basic brushes here, number 2, number 4, number 6, number 8, and of course I need a rigger. I need one of these liner brushes. Let's start with an easy and simple sky here. For that, I'm thinking of using a number 4. I'm not stretching this sheet. It's a very tiny piece of paper. And this is just a demonstration. I would have made, if I was making it on a bigger sheet of paper, I would have certainly stretched the paper beforehand. I'm going to take some lemon yellow. That's what I want to start with. Doesn't look as bright. I want to keep it bright and nice. Taking some of this brighter and if you've noticed, I'm doing all of this wet on wet. A bit of this. Oh yeah, I love these dramatic colors in the sky. And maybe a tad bit of purple too. While you're painting the sky, make sure that one you're picking up your colors quick and fast. If you will spend too much time, so hence I whenever I start painting, the first thing that I do is I make sure all my colors are ready to be used, which means all the colors should be nice and wet before you start painting. You don't know which colors you're going to use uh, once you start painting, so it's always better to wet the entire palette in one go. That's what I always do. And if you see, I'm using pretty much all the beautiful colors and making the sky look pretty dramatic. I'll keep this part a little dark. And a hint of blues here. Little more of this, the highlights here. If you see, I'm taking just a tad bit of color, but I'm taking a lot of pigment so that the sky gets some bit of texture too. I'm trying to pick up some more dark colors for the top of the sky, mainly for this part. Another way to add texture into your painting is simply using a dry brush. Sometimes even that lifting of paint leaves a nice and beautiful light in your painting. Okay, I think we're good here. Now let me start with the far hills. They generally will look blue at a distance. Wetting it up so that I can have a little lighter tone of the color that I've put. Now I need a little darker tone. already looks like layers. You can see there are so many hills in the distance. And all I did to achieve that effect is, and if you've noticed, I'm doing most of this wet on wet. I'm keeping it loose. I don't want to define too many things here. I'm going to take a little bit of this dark brown, mix that with blue to get a very, very dark color. Am I getting that? I don't know. Looks like my color is pretty diluted. One thing that I swear by, and for some reason I'm not very comfortable using when I'm painting with watercolors, is using blacks. So in my view, and I know there are a lot of artists who use black to create that silhouette effect. I feel in nature nothing is black. Why should we use black color? And when we use black in watercolors, it just makes your painting look very opaque, which defeats the entire purpose of using the medium. And that's my personal view. That's absolutely my personal view. Feel free to use black if you really love it, if you really want to use that. But as I'm saying, an absolutely personal view, and that's something that I stick to. I never even use a black color in my palette ever when I'm doing watercolors or when I'm painting nature, whether it's whichever medium it is. I never use a black. You see how loose I'm keeping it. Can use want to keep light confined to just one area. Keeping the colors nice and wet makes it so much easier to pick them on the fly. I'm thinking of adding some bit of orange and red here as well, rather than confining everything to pink, because I wanted to keep this part really nice and colorful. Let's see. Leaving few whites doesn't hurt at all. Just bring in some bit of light into your painting, which always looks nice. I'm a fan of these white spaces or the light areas. I'm gonna take one of my favorite techniques. Some bit of splatter has to be there. I'll wait for it to dry, but this is pretty nice, easy and simple landscape that I think any one of you will be happy to try. Keep adding these till the time you're not happy and you're not finding it as colorful as you wanted it to be. And trust me, these are absolutely loose. Let me bring it closer. See? I'm thinking of adding some colors to the sky. Looks pretty light to me, especially this part. Hard edges are no fun anywhere in any painting. So I'll try to keep them nice and loose. Especially when you're doing sky. I know this is pretty dramatic. You know, it has tons of colors. Trust me, I think I'm liking it. I would rather have a little bit of some white spaces here to create that glow in the sky. Yeah. I think I'm happy with this. I can leave it right here. This is going to be a little nice, happy painting. Try a big one if you want. I'm just adding some highlights here and there by adding these darker tones of green. What is it is helping me to do is to create some kind of a depth. It is helping me achieve some demarcation between, probably, I was thinking I'll have two different hills here. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to add these little shadows using a darker tone of the color right here Yeah, looks good to me. I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty happy with this little tiny landscape that we did probably what in how many minutes? 20 minutes? Not bad at all. What do you think? And once this is finished, just sign it off. Uh, these look a little hard to me. These brush strokes look a little hard to me, so I'm gonna blend them and maybe add a few of these. You should never overdo, which I'm currently doing. You should just stop. The more you go back to the same areas, the more you keep fixing things and the more trouble you may get into. So you should never overdo something. Just leave it as is. Once you finish your painting, everything seems to be falling in place. So don't worry. This looks nice. I'm happy about it. Let me know what you think. Bye bye. Happy painting.